Welcome back to All Grit, No Gifts. I'm Rashad Braithwaite, the standout without handouts. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the waves of life. Yeah, this one's called Hang 10, you know what I mean? In the nod to surfing culture. Yeah, Hang 10. So I wanted to take you back real quick to earlier time of my life. When I was growing up, I was born in South Central LA. And I was a young kid running around the hood, and I had older influences in my life. I had my grandfather stayed right behind me and my family, so I would spend a lot of time, with my grandfather. And I also had a surrogate grandmother. She wasn't my biological mother, or excuse me, my biological grandmother, but for all intents and purposes, she was my grandmother, and her name was Gladys, and she was just a beautiful lady. And she just loved on me, and it just was amazing. So she had a big influence on my earlier childhood. I would spend a lot of time, with Gladys or with my grandfather George Harris, and I soaked up a lot of wisdom around them. I think it's important to have young ones around their wiser, older elders. But one thing that had happened, I'll kind of condense some of this, and perhaps I'll share a bit more of that in a later time. But ultimately, Gladys was a lot older, so she had passed on. And one thing that I had gotten out of that I think is very precious, not the only thing, but one significant thing was poetry. Gladys meant a lot to me, and I'll speak more to that later. But when she passed, I was stuck. I was about 8 years old, and at her passing, I actually had read a poem that I had made. I had an epiphany at 8 years old, or around roughly 7 or 8, at how much emotions words carried. I saw words as like capsules that could hold emotions, and I had that epiphany at about 8 years old. That's when it really hit me. I mean, I could understand words, we could all speak and so forth, but I really had an appreciation at that time of my life. And I had wrote a poem to Gladys, and I think that sparked a lifelong love affair with poetry, with myself, and just loving the expressed word. And yeah, since then I've taken to poetry. I used to rap. I'm a lifelong MC. I'm always love that art. I don't love the game as much, but I love the art. And yeah, but that's neither here nor there. What I had taken from that were the abilities of words to carry emotions, and that was ingrained in me. So I say that to say, I look at things with a poetic lens. When I look out into the world, I often look for patterns. Our brains are natural pattern recognition instruments. Our brains look for patterns all the time. So I often look for things that are seemingly not related, and I look for analogies, and I find relationships in things, and I find a lot of metaphors and a lot of analogies. I enjoy doing that, and I think I have a knack for it, and it's just something practiced, and you get conditioned. But I say that to say one particular analogy, one particular phenomenon in this life that is so analogous in so many places is the phenomenon of a wave. And I think waves are just fascinating. And I enjoy science also. I like to consider myself a critical thinker, and I really enjoy science, and I love physics. To a layman's degree. I'm not someone well versed in it, but I have a fondness and an affinity for it. So that's something that I really like to delve into. But with that being said, with such an appreciation for that, I could see how they're all around us, from the energy from the sun, pulsing energy. Those are waves of energy, and we can take it for granted because it seems constant because of the frequency and the speed, but we're always bathed in these waves of energy. And I mean, there's sound waves, there's the electromagnetic waves, and now thanks to LIGO, we even see that there's gravitational waves. So there's waves all around us. Waves can be metaphoric or they can be, figurative or literal. They're everywhere. So I like to think of those things sometimes, give myself little thought experiments and just consider some of that stuff. And the more you look at things that way, you see the abundance of them. So that's what led me to think of, Hang 10, because we're so inundated with all these waves. You really have to get an appreciation for that and try your best to make the most of it. I like to think that when you see things clearer and when you see reality for what it is, you can be better prepared. If you were under the impression that you were going to go scuba diving, you would prepare a certain gear. And if you wind up going to a desert, the gear you prepared is not going to be, appropriate. You're going to have all the scuba gear in the desert, and it's not going to be well suited. So that's an example of seeing things for what they truly are, seeing reality and being able to be prepared for what reality really is. So those are the things that make me question more and think critically, so I can get a clearer sense of reality. And it doesn't hurt to think of things in metaphors, because sometimes that's where you'll get those aha moments when you see things and certain epiphanies. But however, you can always expect waves, like life, waves of life. You'll have your ups and your downs. Those are sort of cliche things, but it's a lot of like folk wisdom and truths in certain phrases. But those ups and downs will come, and they'll come in so many different forms. For instance, just your lifespan. You'll have a point to where your capacities are limited, and then they're increasing and they're increasing, and then they get to that point of a parabola where they're at their peak, and then suddenly certain faculties are diminishing. And even different categories of different categories of facilities rise and fall at different times. For instance, as you age, you might lose some of your strength, but you might gain wisdom. So everything isn't on the same timeline, but they are still following the same general pattern of crests and troughs. And I think when you can appreciate that, you can and you have a sense of it, you can make more of it. You can be better prepared for the dynamics of a wave. That's why I like to think of like a surfer. They have such an innate understanding of a literal water wave, in the beach. They know when a swell has the potential to be bigger. They know when a wave is not worth, paddling out to, and they know which waves could be dangerous, because they have such a intimate relationship with them. So they can get the most out of that. And those are things I like to think of, and extrapolate that to other waves that we encounter in our lives. As you see it and you can understand it a bit more, you can behave appropriately. You'll have waves of emotion, and that gets back to self-awareness. When you have different waves of emotion, you can tell when it's something that's not going to bother you, or something that's not going to excite you too much, or when it's something that will have an intense effect, and you can adjust your reaction to it appropriately. So those are some of the things that I like to give some thought to when I'm on this grind. And also think of just the ups and downs of life. Like they tell you, be prepared for a rainy day. You can't always expect your peak to be static. You can't expect your highest zenith to be status quo. That'd be kind of foolhardy to think that you're just gonna always remain on top. I mean, there's so many different things, and then so many things changing in this dynamic world, you should come in with a plan of, some sort of exit strategy out of almost any endeavor. uh, I like to think of things sort of like a pyramid. A pyramid. Imagine, balancing success as like a ball on a pyramid. At the base of a pyramid, it's easier to keep the ball balanced, and the base is like the lowest point of the pyramid. But as you get higher and higher, it becomes increasingly harder to keep that ball balanced or at a lower energy state where it's not at risk of falling to a lower state. If you're at the peak of a pyramid, it's quite hard to keep a ball perched right at the peak. You're gonna always have to exert some sort of effort or put out some sort of energy to keep it there, especially with all the different circumstances that could have an effect on it. So sometimes I think of success like that, and the higher the success, the more it's going to take to crystallize that. So you should always expect some change, either to keep yourself positioned higher for a longer period of time is going to be a matter of more effort or more good fortune or more talent or more of a skill, and the base will have more room for more people who can't perform at such a level like that. And there's degrees to where your proverbial ball will settle and find its rest, but nobody should anticipate staying at that peak indefinitely. I think you'd be doing yourself a big disservice for expecting life to treat you that way. And some people deal with receding from their moment in the sun better than others. But that's just something I kind of give some thought to. And another thing that I think of that's quite interesting is just life being like a roller coaster. You're gonna have your ups and your downs, and it's gonna be a ride, and you want to be here to enjoy the ride. And I thought to myself, if somebody is always anticipating ascending higher and higher and just having good fortune, forever, it'd be like getting on a roller coaster that just went up, and that wouldn't be a very particularly fun roller coaster. If it was just a elevator going straight up forever, I don't think too many people would be in line for that. Sometimes the dips are what add excitement to the trip. Sometimes the downs can be catalysts for amazing things. They say necessity is the mother of invention, and sometimes your time of need or your time of perhaps not ideal circumstances can lead to breakthroughs or lead to inventions or creative ideas. There's been times in my life when I've been going through it and it birthed cool things like my brand, for instance. My brand, Get You Dough. I created that at a rough spot in my life when I was trying to diversify my hustle and expand my square. So that's just a quick instance. Something like that came out of a moment that I thought wasn't going to be the best, and it birthed my brand. So sometimes those downtimes can really be a catalyst, and sometimes it's really valuable to know how to glean value out of discomfort or things that aren't always the ideal. That's really important. A painter doesn't just paint with the nice shiny colors and the nice bright vibrant colors. Sometimes you need dark shadows and dark colors to really add volume and emotion to a piece of art. So again, I like to speak in a lot of metaphors and analogies. I find that sort of wisdom to be helpful. Sometimes you can really get your point across that way and give people an understanding of where you're coming from. But yeah, that's what I thought of, the idea of life as a roller coaster. Like, you're gonna want some twists and some turns. You're not gonna want some boring trip just indefinitely rising. That wouldn't be no good, man. And none of us experience that. We all have our challenges. Right now, the richest man in the world's got dick pics out there. So money's no panacea. Life has a configuration of challenges for everybody. And they're varying degrees. But I just wanted to emphasize, that there's waves. There's good times and there's bad times, and how you make the most of the bad times is what's really gonna be telling about this journey, because the good times they take care of themselves. The good times are good times. You can just put those on autopilot. But there's a phrase that adversity introduces a man to himself. Sometimes you'll see what you're made of. You'll test your mettle in adversity, and you can come away from that adversity with a better understanding of who you are. So I think that's quite valuable. And there was a quote that I was impressed by. There's a writer. Her name is Fran Lebowitz, and she had a brilliant quote. And she said that I'm a paraphrase. She said that happiness is a sensation, not a condition. Happiness is something that is a sensation. It comes as in a moment, but it's not something that is like some static state of being. And a lot of us, I think we might have been suggested so much that we might have been influenced to think that happiness is a condition. And I thought she had a real cool way of phrasing that, and that was a revelation. I was like, man, that was profound, So big ups to Fran Lebowitz for that. But I share that feeling that happiness is a sensation, and it's important how you frame things and how you look at things, because when you want something, you might be aspiring to something that you don't understand, and when you get it, you might not get the result you intended. So when you see happiness as something that comes and goes, it's easier to deal with that than if you were expecting it to just be some static state. You know what I mean? So yeah, while you're out here, man, surfs up, man. Ride these waves, make the most of these waves. From the most fundamental building blocks of matter, man. An electron behaves like a wave. A photon, a proton. These things behave like waves. That's just on the micro or the nano, even to the macro. Your lifespan is a parabola. There's so many waves, and I don't want to just beat that to death, but I thought that was quite profound. I think about that from time to time. These are things that I like to rattle around the mind and give some thought to, man. When you're bathed in all these different waves, these energies, and again, it's for the purpose of seeing reality with a bit more clarity, seeing things as it naturally is. Your mind is just an interpretation of all these sensations. Your brain gives you its best interpretation or representation of what it is, but when you know a bit more, you can get a bit more appreciation of just everyday occurrences. So yeah, man, hang 10, ride these waves, make the most of it, the good and the bad. You can behave a bit better. You don't wipe out. You know what I mean? You don't just waste a good wave. You can ride it longer, you can make the most of it, and you don't just put yourself at risk for those bad waves, and where it's so detrimental that it just sidelines you. And those are just some thoughts I had this week, just something I wanted to put out there. Hopefully it's adding value to those of you who get a bar and check with your boy. But again, yeah, if y'all want to reach out and chop it up with me, you can always email me. I'm at allgritnogifts@gmail.com. I encourage you to shout me out or strike me up. Look me up and send me an email if you choose to. And also go get your gear. Go to portpeewee.com. You can support my movement, support my brand, and get you some cool things. And that's what we're doing, man. So again, this week I just wanted to share that with you. Chime in real quick and express a bit of my philosophy. These are just some of my opinions and expressions, some of the ideas that I kick around. And yeah, I hope that did a little something for you. So to the next one, to the next dispatch from the grind, I bid you guys farewell. Stay up.